Good evening. Welcome to Money Matters. My name is Anthony Wilson.
And I'm Judy Kanhai. Coming up in this week's program, one businessman tells us despite the economic slowdown, he's recording double-digit sales growth. And a former resident of the St. Michael Home for Boys tells us how his mom saved him from a possible life of crime. Today, he has his own business.
But we begin with an interview with Emily Elias, the chairman of TSTT. He talks to us about the 49% stake held in TSTT by Cable and Wireless Communications and about TSTT's rollout of 4G LTE. Good evening, Mr. Elias.
Good evening.
TSTT is rolling out 4G LTE even though it does not have the assigned 750 spectrum. How is that process of rolling out the 4G LTE going?
Well, it's going extremely well. We're now nationwide, but not totally continuous because we are using spectrum that we already have to roll out the 4G because we felt that the people of Trinidad and Tobago need it and it's long overdue. However, some of the 700 megahertz spectrum, which ultimately will be where we will locate our 4G efforts, right? Some of that spectrum is currently used for our entertainment, television, and we have to migrate that service, the television service, into a new band, which is a work in progress. We are in communication with TAT and there will be assigning spectrum for that. Once we migrate the television services and entertainment services to this new band, it will free up the 700, at which point TAT will allocate a portion of the 700 to TSTT, a portion to Digicel, and there'll be a portion in reserve for some future activity. Mm-hmm. When that happens, we will move, it will not be complicated, we will move our 4G that we have already launched ahead of all the competition. We're the only company in Trinidad and Tobago with 4G now.
Would that migration affect the quality of programming that TSTT's television audience receives?
No, actually it would improve it. We're expanding that aspect of our business very vigorously as well. We feel that the growth areas for us will be as we become an agile broadband communications company. We are seeing worldwide that companies are losing revenue on the voice side because there's so many alternatives, WhatsApp and other kinds of apps that are available. So the voice revenue is being challenged, but where we will grow is data, our television business, our security business, and our wireless business. The wireless is going to be very big. When we launch our 700 spectrum, what we'll get is a wider penetration. Right now, our 4G is available. You go to Tacarigua, you get it. You're in Port of Spain, you get it. But in between, you may find you go back to the 3G because the spectrum we are using for this launch, while nationwide and in Tobago, we'll get better coverage and more penetration and more density and capacity when we have our 700, which should be in the next few months.
You mentioned TSTT to get a 4G LTE license, Digicel to get a 4G LTE license, and you mentioned a third one that's going to be held in reserve. Factually, Flow applied for, I believe, a 4G LTE license. Flow is now owned by Cable and Wireless Communications, which owns 49% of TSTT.
Yes.
Would it be fair for the Telecommunications Authority to grant or lease or sell a 4G LTE license to Flow Cable and Wireless Communications if that company still owns 49% of TSTT?
Okay, so the short answer is no. They can't have their foot in two camps. But firstly, TAT have complete authority over spectrum allocation. However, it's the cabinet that has to decide on whether a third operator will be granted a license. Now, we already, there are question marks about whether this country needs a third operator. There are consequential impacts on foreign exchange, whether or not it will serve our country to have yet another operator when the penetration we have, which was recently announced by Dr. Rowley at a conference, we have over 2.1 million cell phones in this country, and the population is certainly a lot less than that. So it means that every man, woman, and child, even a newborn baby, is in theory the owner of 1.5 cell phones. So the big question really is, why a third operator at all? But that's a matter for the cabinet. I leave it to the cabinet. TAT has wisely changed the spectrum plan of the previous TAT board so that 3 people can be accommodated within the 700 megahertz. Previously, TAT had said only 2 could be accommodated and wanted to reserve one for a potential new third operator, thereby leaving the 2 existing persons to fight over one allocation. That was patently wrong and unfair. That has now been corrected thanks to the new board of TAT and Dr. Prince. It is completely wrong for Liberty, who is now the new owner, to have a 49% stake in TSTT while being an active competitor and owner of the Flow cable and wireless operations in Trinidad. So I know they had an extension of time to sell the shares, several extensions, but the latest one ends on the 31st of March. So it's already overdue, and the shares, to my knowledge, have not been sold. So we think that they have to sell. The act under which TAT operates requires a license to be applied for and approved for the new owner. And I don't think TAT should be considering giving a license for CWC Flow to continue operating under this new ownership unless they sell the shares. They have to sell it for whatever price they can get. And if they're asking an exorbitant price and they don't get it, they can't just say, we didn't get our price. There's a market out there.
How significant do you think it is that Digicel, TSTT's main competitor, in March announced that it was proposing to retrench a quarter of its global staff?
Well, it didn't surprise me, because in its very essence, what we have to realize is that technology of itself is creating redundancies in the telecommunication sector. Let me give you a simpler example. When I started in the construction industry, I dug foundations for buildings using pickaxes, agricultural forks, and shovels. And when we had to cart away the excess dig, we threw it on a truck with shovels. Nowadays, you have trucks with no loaders because everything is hydraulic. We don't dig foundations with people anymore. But I'm not surprised that the staffing will fall, because technology investments of themselves and technological advances create redundancies. And I think we have to face that in TSTT as well.
When we come back, Judy speaks with Mario Sabga-Aboud, the founder of Rituals, about how that company is managing in the downturn. Money Matters will be right back.